You're listening to Now Steaming. This is the podcast that serves fresh, hot takes from the millennial Chinoy perspective. My name is Stan C. My co-hosts and collaborators are the co-creators of So Asian Comics, Kimberly Mas and Cedric Cheng. Guys, I'm really loving the color in your background. Like I can tell that you guys work in a legitimate studio based on the colors in your
Oh,
on your
thank you.
walls. So thank you
Thanks,
for making me
thanks.
feel insecure about my virtual background from the radio station that I used to go on air regularly for.
What happened to the previous background that you were using?
Galing naman sa inyo, pero wala. Ito yung naka-default, tinamad na akong palitan. And I thought it was appropriate to have the wave background because this was my virtual background for over a year, basically, when I was doing the morning show on Wave alongside my partner. I'm not gonna say former yet because technically we're still with Wave, diba? So let's bring on our guest for this week for this very special episode. She's my partner on Wave 89.1 and my friend for a good few years now. Debbie Ten joins us on Now Steaming. How's it going, Debbie?
Hey, hello. Thank you guys so much for having me. I'm your first guest on this show. Man, I've never felt truly Chinoy until this moment right here.
Wow, wow.
That's good to know.
You have a very colorful origin story, diba? With regard to your identity. But the reason why I specifically invited you for this episode is because one, we're recording this towards the end of Pride Month, and two, you're someone who, throughout our friendship, I've come to know, is very open about being part of the community, of the LGBTQ plus community. So, siguro to dig into all of that, we have to really get to know who you are. So, for people, especially from the Chinoy community, who are getting to hear your voice or see your face for the first time, how would you introduce Debbie Ten?
Oh wow. Oh man. Sometimes I feel like I barely even know myself, so I don't know how to describe myself to everybody, but I would say that one thing that most people would tell me, so I'm just sharing with you what people say about me. Debbie Ten is a very hardworking person who doesn't like to take no when it comes to her dreams as an answer. So growing up has always just been a bunch of stories back to back of me having a certain dream and wanting to reach for it. But I've always been told growing up in a very small town where the dreams are small, where people like to settle in Brunei Darussalam, that you're dreaming too big. I've had teachers that have told me that maybe level you have to level with everyone else in your classroom. I've had teachers that have told me, "Oh, you're never going to have a big bright future because you're a Chinese girl who doesn't like math. You think that being in the limelight is something to be proud of. Your dreams of wanting to be a reporter, they're never going to happen. What you need to do is be realistic and find your way through accounting or be a nurse the way that your Filipino mom wants you to be, or be an accountant the way that your Chinese dad would prefer that you would be. But all those things like drawing blood, I'm afraid of drawing blood. And at the same time, I am not good at math. People have tried so hard that my math teacher would tell me I had no future because I can't be good at math.
Because you
But
can't numbers.
can't because I can't numbers. I can't count higher than 10, guys. Just kidding. I do. I mean, 11 is somewhere up there, right? And then followed closely by 13. I'm sure there's one number missing in between, but like I can't really remember right now. I'm so sorry. Forgive me. But yeah, I feel like the only way to describe me, if I could just use one word, would have to be hardworking, and it would have to be in regards to my dreams.
Yeah,
So yeah.
you're. I mean, we see it in your career. Diba? I've followed your career ever since we started in radio. We kind of started
Oh,
right around the same time. You've dabbled in TV hosting as well, and now you've got a regular gig streaming events, diba? Streaming on Kumu, hosting both online and in the real world. Remember that life? But
what is the real world?
time is a flat circle. But I want to get into yung background mo because I think your particular background is very unique because you're someone who was raised by a Chinese dad and a
Mhm.
Chinese Filipino mom in another country. So can you tell me what that's like growing up in Brunei? You mentioned it was a small town. Do you remember the name of the town? And yeah, can you paint a picture of that background?
I grew up in a town called Palabalayit. So it's the biggest district out of four, only four districts in a country called Brunei Darussalam. So if you look for Brunei Darussalam on the map, it's just a small speck of dust. It's a super tiny country, but it is first world. And it was a very conservative town that I grew up in. Like my grandfather, he was from mainland China, but after the war, he had migrated to Malaysia and eventually found his way to Brunei. So my dad is pure Chinese and he had come from West Malaysia but grew up in Brunei. So being born and raised there, what I can say about Brunei is that it's a very wonderful first world country. It's like a suburban Singapore. That's the quickest way I can describe Brunei. It's just a suburban Singapore where the dreams that you do have are just to make enough money so you can retire. So Brunei is a place that you go to retire. Jobs like being an engineer, being an
Yeah.
architect. They're also well known for being an oil and gas country. So the government pays people to stay in the country. Like it's that kind of country where it's so small, the population is minuscule that you have to pay people to try and stay. Um, Growing up there is kind of interesting because I grew up around many different kinds of races and I made so many friends. Because when it comes to the population demographic, the the most the widest demographic would have to be the Muslims, so Malays and anyone that's under the Islamic religion, then the Chinese. That's followed by the Chinese. The Chinese community is huge there, the second biggest in the population. And then we have the Indians, followed by the Filipinos, which are a smaller fraction of what makes the population. But because of this mishmash of different races, I got to celebrate every holiday known in their books, like Hari
Saya.
Raya,
Yeah.
Deepavali,
Nice.
Christmas. Christmas before it got banned, because in Brunei you can't celebrate Christmas in public because it is promoting um, the Christian faith, Catholic faith, and that's not allowed in a Muslim country because they follow the rules of the Quran. So I grew up with a very open mind when it comes to different religions, different races, and their customs. So, but don't get me wrong, like many racisms, it does happen as well. Some people think they're above the other, but at the end of the day, we all reunite because we get along with each other's cultures. And that's why I felt now growing up, I found myself becoming more open minded when it comes to the different factions that we have in the country and what it's like leading a specific lifestyle. But they all shared one goal, and that was to get a good high paying job that will help you retire in a first world country like Brunei. Growing up with a Chinese dad and a Filipino mom naman. So my mom is part Chinese as well. So they met in the Philippines while my dad was on holiday. They got married and they both my mom moved from Bicol to here in Brunei. Well, I mean to Brunei, not here. Here I'm currently in the Philippines now, but she moved with my dad to start a new life there. And it's funny because you'd think that having that kind of relationship, my mom would try and learn Chinese and my dad would try and learn Filipino, but neither of them speak it in full. So they're not fluent. Until this day, it's super funny because I would ask my mom, like, why would you never try and teach me Tagalog? Or why does dad not take the initiative to learn and vice versa? And she goes, because I have things that I want to tell the maid that I don't want your dad to know. If I'm making chismes,
Yeah, yeah.
she goes,
That's true.
she goes, if I'm making chismes, I don't want your dad to catch on. So get with the program, hon. Get with the program.
Sige, Kim, you had a question that you wanted to ask?
Yeah, no, I actually just wanted to comment. Like, Devi, that's an interesting background because I've never been to Brunei. I've never been to
Mm-hmm.
Malaysia. So when you actually narrated that whole thing, it was really interesting, quite similar to the Philippines, I would say. And I kind of understand how you feel. Like when you were younger, like you can only, like as a woman, you can only achieve this and that. And
Mm-hmm.
it's, how did that make you feel that time? I mean, I'm pretty sure you wanted to prove something or you wanted to break
Oh
out of it,
yeah.
right?
Oh yeah. Like just about everything I did from high school onwards was just me trying to prove everybody wrong. People telling me that your dreams are too big, that it's not you should be more realistic. You should set achievable standards and you're a woman, pa. So it would be this fight between me and everyone, the naysayers that told me that I couldn't do anything bigger than stay in this small town. And it was actually one of the reasons why I chose to leave the country as well. Don't get me wrong, I love Brunei to bits. Like I love my once every 2 years visit to that small town, because as wonderful as the Philippines is, I never forgot where I came from and the richness and culture and the points of views from different races and religions. Like it's all cobbled into one. And clean air is a really nice thing. So whenever I'm hankering for some clean air, I fly back to Brunei, take a big whiff, and enjoy it for the amount of days that I will be in that country. I love my country to bits, but I always felt that growing up in grade school and high school that I never really fit in because I couldn't find the people that had the same mindset
Yeah.
as me. And being a part of the community as well, that's something that's very hidden in Brunei.
Yeah, kasi
Like
conservative.
Mhm.
super conservative. Did you guys hear about that? There was an article that got that kind of blew up in 2019 where Brunei is the only country in the world that still stones the gays.
No.
Really?
Yeah.
No.
So in under Islamic culture, they follow two very outdated rules until this day, and that's like Muslims are not allowed to own dogs because dogs are considered as filthy animals. They're considered as dirty. So no Muslim is allowed to own a dog. And until this day, a lot of Muslims still don't own dogs. But I know a couple of Muslim friends that keep dogs in secret. Of course, like
Yeah.
of course I don't want to rat him out because this is a podcast and it's gonna come out
Goose.
one way or
Yeah.
another. But whenever my best friend visits me, he pets my dog. I'm not gonna name him by name because his dad is gonna kill him. But yeah, in Brunei, they came under fire. Under the UN as well, because in 2019 a article got published and like, did you guys know that Brunei still stones the gays? And see, Ellen DeGeneres talked about it on her show too, and it was because of the public outcry from everyone in the UN, Ellen DeGeneres, whatever. They decided to review that law, and they've stopped doing it. But can you imagine living your whole life in a country where if you are who you are, you can't come out and say this is who I am because you might get stoned for it.
Right. That's horrible. Diba? Some people have said na it's like a fate worse than death. Now you can't openly be yourself, express yourself, live how you'd like to live. So
Mm-hmm.
on that note, how did you come to terms with that part of your identity? Kasi 'di ba yung sexuality, your sexual orientation, that is an integral part of yourself, and knowing na you come from a very conservative country and a doubly conservative family given your Chinese and Filipino roots.
Mm-hmm.
How was that experience for you coming to terms with it?
Oh man, it was really tough because the first couple of years I was sort of like in denial. Um, but to break it all down, I feel like I first knew at the age of 11. So my dad had this like drawer in the house in Brunei, and it would be like one of those file drawers, and it would always be open, drawers 1 to 4 and the fifth, but the fourth would always be locked. And me being a really curious child, I was just like, what's the allure behind that? Like I'm a little bad girl, you tell me not to go there, I'm gonna go there. There's a line you tell me not to step over, I will put my big toe over that line because I need to know what is going on. I was Dora the Explorer Chinese version, okay? um, and I thought, sige, let's see what's going on. And one day I just like tailed my dad around, and I saw where he put the key. So when he left the house for work, I decided to take the key when no one was looking. I opened the third drawer, and then I found this. you, you can hear my boyfriend making a sound in the background, but I opened it up and I was just thrown into a different world.
Uh-huh.
I found my dad's stash of
Of porn?
Playboy magazines.
Nice.
I
Oh.
found my dad's stash of Playboy magazines, and this was back in like what, the 90s. So it's like girls
Mhm.
nudies, like full on nudies, like wala, like nudies lang talaga. And I opened it,
Mhm.
and I was just like, oh wow, I've never seen a woman in this way in my life before. I was like, oh, what? I kind of panicked, and what I did was I just like threw the magazines back and locked it, and I ran away. But as days went on, I got curious. It's like I needed to make sense of what I'd felt. Like, was it shame? Was it anger? Was I upset with my dad for being attracted to this? It's not my mother, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I went back again and I opened the drawer and I took the magazines and I took them to my room just so I could be extra safe when it comes to my browsing. And went through it and it showed many different kinds of women in all different races. And I thought that I should have been weirded out. I should have felt like at the time, for the lack of a better word, disgusted. But I wasn't. I sort of felt, oh wow, this is beautiful. And it wasn't anything pervy, it wasn't anything malicious. It was just, wow, this is attractive. This is beautiful. There's nothing wrong with this. And in a way, I felt like I understood my dad a little bit better. But at the same time, once I grew older, I realized I shouldn't have been touching that because I was getting to know my dad in a more intimate level that I did not want to figure out. Right. It made me like sometimes I would ask myself like, does my dad like the same kind of women that I did? And it's super weird that it even came to that conclusion. But I saw everything, and from then on out, things just shifted. Things just changed. Like every magazine I read, every show that I watched, like I would look at women and be like, yeah, pwede to. Like
Mm-hmm.
this is okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Like they're beautiful. There's nothing wrong with saying that they are beautiful and feeling a certain kind of way. And it's crazy because it also affected the way that I was around my friends because I didn't know if anyone else was feeling the way that I did. Maybe it was just a phase, maybe it was just some form of confusion. And don't get me wrong, there is a gay community in my country. Like in Brunei, I had like my sister's friends. Um, my sister had a friend that was a lesbian and she would date other girls, but it would always be in secret because she is Muslim. So she would cross dress, she would dress up like a guy, and eventually she cut her hair into a pixie cut, and it caused controversy. Like her classmates kind of bullied her for it. She was made fun for it because we were so young. Nobody understood what was going on. And I had this one best friend, Naman, her brother was gay and he loved to cross dress too. He grew up with five other sisters and he would always wear their clothes and their heels. And I thought, but I'm not like them though. I don't want to dress up like a guy. I can't really relate from that standpoint. So I didn't think that I could share my thoughts and my feelings with anyone. But it just so happens that one of the sisters of that guy who used to cross dress, um, I'm not going to name her because this is out of her privacy as well. And it's a super sad story. Like when it comes to me, Naman, I can say that I came out of it stronger, happier, and I'm out to the people that matter. Right. But when it comes to her, she ended up living a life that she did not want to live. So it turns out she was a really good friend of mine and she was lesbian. And around that time when I was just figuring out my sexuality as well, she told me what she was going through, and she had just boyfriend after boyfriend because and she was like one of the most like cheekiest friends that I had. She would be having sex at a young age with all of her boyfriends, and sometimes I would ask her like, why are you like that? Why are you so forward with your sexuality? It wasn't like I was judging her or anything, but it was just curious to me that she was older than me by a couple of years. So she was like what I was around 12 and she was 15.
Mm-hmm.
So she was around like my sister's age, only a year plus. And she would be like, well, she was sleeping around because she wanted to know if one day she could feel anything for men.
Oh.
And that made me realize that she'd come clean to me that she was a lesbian. And when she came clean to me, when she came out to me, basically, it made me feel a little more comfortable around her, that I came clean about how I felt too. So my first ever, I wouldn't call it a relationship because it wasn't official, but my first ever encounter or experience with a girl was with her. And I
Wow.
wouldn't I wouldn't call it love because we were both really young. I was 12, she was 15. She was going from one relationship to another to try and hide what was really going on. As for me, I was just trying to figure out why every time I would sneak away into my dad's little secret stash and take some magazines for myself, right? Like to me it was a different experience. It like to me it's just I was just super curious and I thought maybe this is something that I would get over. But having conversations with her and seeing her pain, seeing how she would just sleep with a bunch of different guys because she wanted to feel something, it broke my heart. And I would have sleepovers at her house, right? And it was fine because we were just two girls, so her parents wouldn't think anything of
Yeah, they
it.
were none the wiser.
But they should have like figured something out, but they didn't. So I got to know her in a very like different level. Like the I feel like the intimacy we had over the conversations alone, like, you can put aside all the physical stuff, right? Like the conversations that we have were more important because we felt that we couldn't talk to anyone about it. And I would feel bad for her because she would say to me, "Hey, at least if ever you decide to come out, at least you'll still be accepted. By law, for us Muslims, it's never going to happen." Her dad, her parents were like, "You have to get married at some point," because in Brunei the marriage age is 13. So
Yeah.
yan ba?
Yeah, what a low age of consent.
Yeah, with a low age of consent, and 13-year-olds can get married to 50-year-olds just as long as their parents sign a form.
Shit.
So yeah, that's a Pandora's box we don't want to get into.
Mm.
But
Mm.
her dad was already discussing marriage for her at the age of 15, and she had told me that even if we weren't in love with each other, she could never feel what she felt kissing those guys as compared to when she kissed me. And there have been so many nights where we would just hold each other and just cry, and I would cry for her. And I would like to say that there's a happy ending for her, but there wasn't. Like, she eventually got married to a guy and she has a bunch of children now. But every time I would like check in on her every now and then, she'd be like, "Yep, still lesbian."
So, knowing, no, or coming to terms with who you are, given na yung nga, ganun ka-strict sa inyo, di ba? You just painted a very accurate picture of how hard it
Mm.
is to even just be honest with yourself. When did you realize that you couldn't really continue to express yourself the way you wanted to in Brunei? Because at some point you packed up and you left for the
Yeah.
Philippines. So was it that time in your life?
It was a bunch of things that led up to that point, but one of it was when I first came out to my mother. So I was 13, and I was at a house party with a bunch of friends, and we were playing like spin the bottle. And at the time, we're underage drinking and whatever, but it was fine if we hit it because in Brunei alcohol is banned. But we were in a friend's home, and it was just liquor from our parents' cabinets and stuff like that. And played spin the bottle. I ended up kissing one of my girlfriends. Like there was nothing going on between me and her, but people took photos, and it got posted on MySpace.
Wow.
MySpace.
Yeah, MySpace
MySpace.
pa at that time. It got posted on
MySpace.
MySpace, and my mom found out. So I sat my mom down and I said, "Mom, I need to tell you something, and it's something that I felt for a while now. I I put maybe because I wanted to be safe. I went maybe like girls too." And I was crying. Like it took me. I'd known since I was 11, so it took me a really long time to just like after having this like secret relationship with one of my best friends. I thought, okay, maybe I just can't carry this anymore. I have to tell her. And
How
when I
did she
told,
react?
she flipped the fuck out. She's a born again Christian, so when I told her like that I was attracted to women, she started yelling and screaming at me. She's like, "I no, this can't happen. I'm gonna take you to the pastor. We're gonna pray over you. I'm gonna throw holy water on you. This is
Pray
not
the gay
okay." Like,
away. Oh my
yeah.
god.
So she was like flipping out. She's like, "You can't stay here. Like, I won't allow it. Like, this is not, no, this can't be. This can't be. This can be fixed. This can be fixed." And in that moment, like, I panicked when she said, "No, you can't stay here. You're not my daughter." Something in me just like realized, oh my God, I'm going to be homeless. So as soon as I stepped out of that closet, within a half second, I stepped back in because I went, Mama, wait. I was just kidding. And it took everything within me not to hagulgul cry because I had to step back in. This is preservation of my home. Like I can't be me.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
And it was from then on out that I sort of stopped telling my mother things, like what I felt. And I'm not saying this because I want to trash on my mother. Like she's cool in her own way, but so you got to be honest with yourself and honest to the people that are watching and that might have the same kind of story and experiences, that just because you love your parents by default, that doesn't mean they're always behaving the best way they can in situations that they need to. And this needs to be discussed. This needs to be out in the open, because we can't keep giving them hall passes just because they're our blood, that they're our parents, that we should just forgive every nasty thing that they've done, because sometimes these things, they turn into little traumas. So from then on out, when I tried to come out to my mom, I stopped telling her things. I couldn't confide in her in any emotional thing, because she would react in a way now, if she doesn't understand it, she'll just get angry. So as time went on, I kept to myself. I had teachers that told me I would never achieve the dreams that I wanted to. So I set a plan. I'm like, college is coming up. I want to study, but I know I can't do it here. I've always known I wanted to be in radio. I've always known that I wanted to do something in public speaking, but I couldn't do it here. Everyone's telling me, no, it's not gonna happen. Oh, you're so funny. That's so cute. You really think so? No. So I thought, you know what? Fuck everybody. Fuck everybody right now. I will do what I can to make sure that my dreams will go somewhere. I got a job in a cafe. I worked for a whole year. I saved up enough money for my ticket to the Philippines, where my mom's relatives are, and I had a cousin that I was gonna live with at the time. We were in talks, and my mom was okay with me moving there because she liked the prospect of me having bigger dreams. So you
Yeah.
see, I can't really fault her for everything because of her, though she did motivate me to leave the country and find a job outside of Brunei.
Right.
So when I finally got enough money, I told my dad, okay, I bought my ticket, I'm gonna head on out of here. And when I left to the Philippines, that's when I kind of came into my own in more ways than one. Because in the Philippines, the community, they're so much more open. Like I finally saw people that are comfortable in their own skin enough to be like, yeah, I'm gay. Yeah, I like dick. I like pussy, and that's fine and that's okay. I like both, and that's okay. So I my cousin had a very close knit LGBTQ plus community. So I got to meet my first ever trans woman, trans man, and bisexual people. So that's where I felt like I fell under that category, right? So I got to meet guys who are outwardly gay. Like some people are still hiding it, but we had this like small knit community that's like, oh, you know what I'm going through, you know what I'm experiencing. And that was when I started to let loose. That's when I started to come into my own. And I thought, maybe this is my chance to be the person that I want to be. That's why if nobody asks, I'm not gonna tell them. But
Hmm.
if people like ask, what are you into? Do you have a boyfriend? Blah blah blah. Like if they ask me what my sexuality is, I identify as bisexual. And ever since I came to the Philippines, I've been out. I've been out to everybody here because I didn't want to pretend. I didn't feel like I needed to. I could just be myself. And hopefully, if you like me as a person enough for us to have a decent conversation, then go. It's cool. So until this day, I'm still not out to my parents, but I think that's okay because like I've had conversations with my dad like over the years about like sexuality and whatnot. And there's this one time where my mom said something really nasty about the community that I'm not going to share, but my dad defended. He was just like, don't you say that. If they're not hurting anybody, then who are you to judge? Let them
Wow.
be.
That's
So
incredibly progressive from somebody from his generation.
exactly, exactly. And this is a guy who in the past would cringe whenever he would see like, gay couples on screen. And I felt, oh, progress. And in that moment when he said that, I wanted to cry because that was recent. That was like what, 2018? So when he said that, I wanted to cry because it made me feel like one day one day I can come out to my dad, and that's all that matters, just as long as he's willing to accept me. So if it's one out of two of the parents, then that's totally fine with me. I know my mom is never going to accept me for who I truly am, but then she doesn't accept me for a lot of things or the way that I live my life. So I mean, shit, that's a lost cause. If it isn't going to happen, then it isn't going to happen. But I'm no longer going to hide back in the closet for her comfort, because at the end of the day, I want to be me. And if you can't love me as I am, then do you really need a place in my life to bog me down with negativity and ideals of the kind of person that I want to be? So it's like I've grown wiser in the years that I've been out in this country, where I have friends in the community and friends that are not in the community but are allies. So
Can we ask?
yeah,
Yeah, can we ask you about your dad a bit more? Kasi
go
I'm
sure.
really curious about yung kwento mo na he said something progressive about the community to defend them, diba? To your against your or to your mom's face. Did you think na he had an idea about you when he said that?
Oh man, I don't know.
Yeah, I actually thought of that. Yeah, I was actually thinking of that question, but yeah, sorry, Debbie,
Feeling mo
go ahead.
nakaramdam ba siya?
I honestly don't think so, because like as lovely as my dad is and as great at math as he is, he doesn't have very good social skills, and he doesn't pick up on things unless you tell him this is this. Then he'll be like, oh, okay. So I doubt my dad knows, but I do want to tell him. But sometimes my friends in the community are like, don't worry about it. Like you're in a relationship with a man now. Um, I don't think it matters, but it matters to me.
Yeah.
I like, even if it,
Yeah.
and that's the funny thing. Like people are like, oh, but how can you still call yourself bisexual if you're in a relationship with a man? Well, just because I'm in a relationship with a man, that doesn't mean I've stopped having emotions and feelings for a girl. Not right now, of course not. But if you're in a relationship right now, does that mean that you're unattracted to all the girls out there
Yeah.
as a straight person? No,
No.
right?
No. Yeah.
So it's just like, man, like I hate that people try and put me in a box because it will make them more comfortable. It matters to me. I am still who I am. Even if I'm in a long term relationship with a guy, that doesn't change the fact that I still like pussy, you know?
Right. I mean, I would have thought na nakaramdam kahit papaano yung dad mo because, I don't know, he noticed that his magazines went missing or something.
No, I always timed it. Okay, I always timed it. I made
Nice.
sure that the magazines are always back in the order that he placed them
Wow.
whenever he comes back home. So I don't know. I don't think he figured it out.
This is the
I
first time
doubt
I'm
it.
hearing of a parent and a child relationship where they share their porn.
Man, one day I'll be like, Dad, yo, you have to look at this instead. One day. I feel like once we're more comfortable around each other, maybe in the far, far future.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Um,
quick question,
yeah, go
Debbie.
said.
Does your father also share the same faith or religion as your mom?
No, he doesn't.
Oh,
And I
okay.
feel like maybe one of the reasons why he's a lot more accepting is because he is not super religious, and that's kind of sad. Because I'd like to say that this doesn't define people of a certain religion, because I know many Christian people that are wonderful, wonderful people, but I also know that there's a thing called pure flicks, like a Netflix for religious people,
Yeah.
that just
Oh.
has really crappy movies that are very divisive and backwards. So it's interesting how the more religious person in the family can be more oppressive. But then again, what's new in that
Yeah.
situation, right? I feel like because my dad's not a man of faith, that he's more open to things like ghosts and aliens and the gays, you know? So
Itong inang categorization niya.
but hey, I feel like it's one of the reasons why, because my dad is a man who likes to travel. My dad is a guy who he just likes to experience things outside of what makes him comfortable, and that's why it's a concept that is easier for him to grasp. Whereas my mother is very conservative in that sense, where she believes that a woman should be a certain way. You know, she hates the way that I sit, and she'll be like, stop sitting with your legs up, and the way that you're crossing them, you sit like a lesbian. And in my head I'm like,
That's very specific. That's very
Very
specific.
specific.
You sit
I
like a
look at
lesbian.
exactly, and I'm like,
Well,
sure. Well,
Yeah.
hint,
okay,
hint.
I didn't think that that would give me away, but all right, since you pointed it out,
Okay.
I will sit
Okay.
like a lady. Let's try.
You mentioned
Yeah.
finding your own people here sa Pinas, diba? When you came here for college and then started your career in media. Did you also find a community of fellow Chinese Filipinos or fellow Chinese people even?
Yeah.
Kasi, diba, you come into a new country, you're gonna want to find new friends.
Oh, bro, I have tried, but the only two people that I know that speak the language that I do, because all the Chinoy seem to speak Hokkien in this country. The only two
Yeah.
people that are Mandarin speakers that I know is you, Stan, and Jazz Reyes, and that is it.
Wow.
It's so
Super
hard.
specific. Super
Yeah.
specific.
Just
Yeah.
two people and that's it. And I feel like I'm losing my grasp on
Your
my Chinese
Chinese-ness.
side just because of it. Like, dude, when Stan gave me tikoy that one Chinese New Year,
Yeah.
I just about cried, dude. I just about cried because I haven't seen this in ages since I've been living in the Philippines. What? And I feel like maybe I'm just not immersing myself in the right Chinoy crowd. But hey, I guess it's time once we're all vaccinated and the world is a better place that might be a better time to start, but who knows,
Siguro
right?
mga 2024, mga ganun.
Ah, Jesus Christ.
Woo.
Wait, so okay, so you're telling me that you don't really have a lot of Chinese Filipino friends.
No,
Okay.
sadly so.
I was about to ask kasi if if you'd found your people among the Chinoy community and how they would have reacted to you. Kasi 'di ba even here in the Philippines, even though you say na for the LGBTQ plus community mas open sila dito,
Mm.
if you're Chinoy, being a gay person is like a cardinal sin.
Yeah, I would assume so. That's why it's just like, in a way, I always wonder because I have this one friend who is in the community as well, but like he's more of a relative, so I wouldn't count him, but he's more Filipino than you could consider a Chinoy, but he's also from like a half Chinese, half Filipino background, and he isn't out to his parents yet, but like in a way, his siblings kind of like guessed, and it's just a really sad situation because they never say anything about it, and the parents keep trying to push him to marry.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh man, I would not want to be in that situation. I feel so bad for you. Kawawa ka. Pero like, I don't know, man. I guess I haven't been around enough Chinoy communities to know that there is an alternative to the ones that I've seen so far. But at the same time, I feel like the world is changing. It is Pride Month, it is 2021. Like, people are, the gays can get married in various parts of different
Not
towns and
here.
different cities, not here where they should allow it.
Yeah.
But I also know some people that used to be against the community slowly growing into it. Like, I hear them change their tone, and it gives me hope that one day we can see all of these types of relationships out in the open, and no one's gonna bat an eyelash over it. And I really hope and pray that that day comes soon, and I don't pray often.
Yeah, okay. Devi, I'm gonna backtrack a little bit. Like you mentioned about your parents, right? So I was just wondering, what do they know right now? I mean, did they ever have that? Like, I mean, your dad. Like, we already asked you that. Like, if he had an inkling. What about your mom? Does she still?
Like after you said that joke
Yeah.
lang yun that I came out.
I think a part of her is always known, but she's always just been in denial as well. Like, that's the thing about um and I'm not saying all parents are like
Yeah.
that, but some parents, they tend to, like, if I don't want this to be truth, then I will just like put it in the back of my head. I'll never think of it again. And that's fine, I guess, if that's the way that you cope with things. But I realize, like, some boomers, they'd rather be oblivious than accept the truth that they're not comfortable with. So I feel like that's the case naman with my mother. Like, she must have known one way or another ever since, like I said, it was a joke, even if it wasn't, but she just chooses not to. I mean, like, shit, like, the first time I told my mom that I wasn't a virgin, like, it was hard for her to grasp. She's like, no, 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 no. And
I'm
she
not
Yeah.
surprised.
she said
Yeah.
she said to me, no, this can be fixed, just pray to God
This
and
can be
promise. She's like, she, pray to God and
Oh
promise,
man.
pray to God and you promise you'll never do it again, and you will be a virgin, your hymen will
What?
regenerate. And I'm like, yeah, like,
Wow.
Oh, okay.
tell yourself what you want to get through the night. I guess I love you still, but
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
super funny. Like, if I die, I would want that to be on my gravestone. Like, I just want to have those words like engraved in my gravestone. Mother once said, "This can
Yeah,
be
yeah.
fixed. This can be fixed. Just pray to God and promise you'll never do it again, and your hymen will regenerate."
Tangina
I love it.
Wow.
No, but hey, like, I'm not trying to shit on my mom or anything. She's great comedic relief. Like, one day I feel like I can be a stand-up comedian, and all the jokes will be all the weird and funny, fucked up things my
Yeah.
mom has said over time.
So, you're very open about all these things, like things na the traditional community would not like women to be. Like, you can't
Mm-hmm.
like other women, you can't not be a virgin, diba? All these things, and you're just very out. You're just very open about it when you represent yourself as a public figure, and you are a
Yeah.
public figure because you're on all these forms of media. So, have you ever felt like people have pushed back against you because you're so unabashedly open about being bisexual, about engaging in sexual activity? Has anybody ever pushed back
Oh
at you as a public
yeah.
figure?
Dude, I've had like people call me malande. I've had people say like, "Oh, sa babae mong tao, ganyan." They'll be like, "Don't speak like that, don't this, don't that." Like the way that I hate how they're always saying that if you're this kind of, stop laughing at the way that I said it. Okay, I know I said it wrong.
Kababae mong tao.
Okay, whatever. For all the times that I've been told that, it's just like, okay, but you don't pay my bills, and
Yeah.
no amount of money can ever buy my silence. You know, if and I know I rub people the wrong way. I've had like falling outs with like family members, and I've had people tell me how to be and who to be all my life. I grew up in a town where they would stone somebody like me for simply loving someone like me in public. So I don't think it matters to me if a stranger tells me that I'm malande, or I should be ashamed of myself for just being honest and saying that this is who I am. Would you want me to lie? Would you want me to put on a pretend pabebe act? For whose comfort? For yours? For what? Who are you? Like, what would be the point? If I hide myself, I'm already hiding myself from my parents. Like, do you know how it kills me every day for them not to know, especially my dad, because I love him to bits. And I don't think it's going to be a fun thing that I'll finally come out to him on his deathbed, because that would be really fucked up. But I know he'll be understanding. And I feel that if you don't add to my life in a positive way, if you would rather me lie to everybody than be who I truly am, then you don't deserve my attention. You don't have a place in my life. If you love me as a human being, you love me as a person, then all of this can be solved and can be fixed. And that's why I'm lucky, because I have progressive relatives. Like, I have an uncle and aunts who are like more open to it, and they're really religious too. So it's like, if my tito and titas and my uncles and my aunts from both my parents' side are more, they show me love enough to accept me as I am, then what the fuck is the opinion of a tita that doesn't even belong to me by blood mean? Nothing, absolutely nothing.
Yeah, and it really takes a lot of lakas ng loob, I guess,
Mm,
to get to this point where you stop caring. And it also goes hand in hand with something I saw on my feed just this past week. Na parang
mm.
there are some people, whether from the older generation or even our own generation, who say, "Oh God, people today they're so sensitive. They just want to
Yeah.
cancel every single thing or whatever." And I've found na the answer to that is it's not being sensitive. It's really just not having the tolerance for your bullshit and us calling out to mga toxic and hurtful and diba, really disrespectful behaviors, thoughts, and words and all that. So I'm really proud of you as your friend, as your coworker. Na you're at a point in your life where you can stand up for yourself like this, and you can be open at least to the people who matter. And I think I can speak for my co-hosts when I say, na I hope that you find the time or you find an opportunity where you can have that conversation with your dad, because I can tell it really means a lot to you.
Thank you. I'd like to hope that it would be sooner than later, but at the same time, it's been hard to get a conversation with my dad in the current situation right now.
Of course.
But I do feel that one day there will be a time where I can just be truly myself. And I'm confident in the fact that the people that love me by blood will be like, oh, actually, that makes sense. We should have seen that coming. I figured, actually, you know what? It doesn't change anything. And That's what people need to see. That's what people need to know. Just because you identify or you prefer or you are, that doesn't change the person that you've been to them.
Right.
And I can't say that I've been the perfect relative, friend, lover, or person. I'm always growing and I'm always changing, but that's always been a part of me that's there. And if you know me well enough, I will never hide that from you. But as the world continues to grow, I'd like to hope that if they're not with it, that eventually they'll remember who I am in their lives for them to be okay. I can get over it because you are still you. The person that you've been to me hasn't changed, and knowing this isn't gonna change anything.
So I guess to just wind down here and close it off, I know na you also have your own fan base. A lot of people online and from from having listened to you on the radio, having watched you on TV, who also look up to you. If one of them finds themselves in the situation that you're in, what would you tell them? In I guess in the same way, what would you tell 12-year-old Debbie? Because when 12, when you were 12, you were in that situation, diba? So what would you tell them?
Ooh, this is a tough one.
Di ba pageant question yun?
Pageant question. I guess what
The
I would
timers are
say,
ticking.
I
Go ahead, go
guess
ahead.
what I would say is just be brave. There will be a lot of challenges to come from people that may not be as accepting of you once you come clean about who you are, but their response will show you their place in your life. And just because you have people that think you need to be fixed, that doesn't mean there aren't people that want you just the way that you are. As cliche and as corny as Liza Soberano, Enrique Hill movie as that sounds, there are people that you will come to meet that will become a part of your life, and they're the family that you choose. That will be your community. Those are going to be your people. So be brave, because once you come out, once you come clean, you tell yourself and the people that you love around you, this is who I am. I wish I could say that it gets easier, but it doesn't. So you need to be brave. You need to be very, very strong, and you need to stand your ground, because there will be people that aren't even involved in your life telling you who to be, what not to do, what's right and what's not, even if they don't add anything to it. Just remember, you're doing this for you, and you deserve to be your own human being without people telling you what should be right in our community based off societal standards. Okay? Be brave, be sure, and you will find the people you belong with. Happy Pride Month, ladies and gentlemen. Thank
Yes.
you.
Ah,
Yes.
That
I
was
love it. I love it.
very good.
nice.
That was very good.
Yeah. Well
Thank
said, well
you.
said.
Debbie, I just want to say thank you for taking this time out to have this conversation with us and have this conversation then for our viewers, our listeners. I really appreciate it. I personally miss having those morning conversations with you on the radio and
Me
telling you
too.
that I'm about to take a shit because I've had my morning coffee. If people want to keep tabs on what you're doing, where can people find you and where can people stream your events?
Okay, you guys can find me online on all forms of social media at Debbie10 official on Facebook, at Debbie underscore 10 on Instagram and on Twitter. And I've been streaming on Kumu since April. Everybody thought it was a joke because I joined on April 1. It's not a joke. I'm still there. I stream every day at Debbie10, and I do topics like these as well, that
Yeah.
we go a deep dive into some really controversial topics. I do true crime and I do horror fiction. I also do breakdowns on movies. And just now, I actually did a topic on celebrity grooming children to be their significant other. So if you're
Wow.
interested
Oh,
in crazy ass topics like that, to break it all down, do find me on Kumu at Debbie10.
Yes,
yeah,
and
there
her
you
last name
go.
spelled Then.
Yes.
How about you guys, Kim and said? Any events coming up on your neck of the woods?
Yeah,
Kim?
okay. I just like to take the time also to say thank you to Debbie. Thank you so much for being here with us. I feel like I was just listening to a very wonderful conversation. I mean, there's a lot more I wanted to ask, but I think you got everything covered, so that's actually fantastic. So thank you for the time, and I hope to catch you in your Kumu live streams. I'm actually nagtatambay ako doon, so uh,
Nice.
I'll drop by one of these days. So yeah, as for me, you guys can catch me. That's at Kimberly Mass on my personal social media accounts. I also have a website, so you guys can check out what else I do there. That's www.kimberlymass.com. Oh, diba? Very legit.
Nice.
Guys can check out what else I'm doing. I'm actually busy with a lot of stuff, mostly hosting right now. So I've been casting a lot of online games.
Burger
So
Kim.
yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I actually have an alter ego. So it's something fairly new. Somebody actually asked me to be an esports host. So it's something new. I'm really enjoying my time. So you guys can also catch me. That's at Burger Kim Gaming. I'm actually gonna be hosting Pure Gold's MLBB tournament tomorrow at 6 p.m. So if you guys want to catch me, I'll be there 6 p.m. So there, that's it for me.
How about you, said?
Well, nothing much on my end, but you can catch me on Instagram at Cedric C. Cheng. You can message me there about our podcast now streaming. And Debbie, I just want you to know that there are people in the Chinoy community, Hokkien speakers, who will welcome you with open arms. The Chinoy community, I know, is largely still conservative, but there are people like us who welcome people like you with open arms. So just want you to know that.
Mhm. Actually, I want to add to what you said, Sid.
Yeah.
Not a pun. I want to add to something. I mean, I've been on Twitter. There's a lot of people actually in my circles that are in the LGBTQ community, and they just have pseudonyms. They don't want to come out yet, probably because they're afraid. So hopefully, this podcast can empower you guys to be yourselves.
Yeah,
Yes.
Good. Yeah.
absolutely. To end the plugs, for me, if you want to talk, it's at underscore Stancy. That's where you can find me. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, it's Stancy Online. Debbie, thank you so much once again. I'd love to have another conversation with you on the podcast. And if you want to have these conversations with us, it is at Now Steaming Podcast on Facebook and Instagram. Twitter, it's at Now Steaming Podcast as well. On behalf of our guest, Debbie Ten, my co-hosts, Kimberly Mas and Cedric Cheng, my name is Stan C. And this has been your serving of these fresh hot takes from the millennial Chinoy perspective. My name is Stan C, and we are out of here. Don't forget to register to vote. Get your vaccines. Bye-bye.